Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I am bringing you my May TBR. So I'm not gonna lie, I don't know why I'm doing a May TBR. I don't really know why I'm bothering, because I have a sneaking suspicion that the month of May is going to be a big mood reading month. I am probably just gonna read whatever the hell I want, which I think I have earned because I realized today that I've actually finished my Owls for the first time. The Owls Readathon, if you don't know, is this huge, like, mega month-long Harry Potter themed readathon, and I've never finished it. Hi, Dax. And yeah, I actually did it. I didn't necessarily stick to my TBR, but I did a pretty good job, and I actually finished it. I finished it. I can't believe it. I'm so bad at readathons, and I'm slightly in awe of myself, even though I did it completely by accident because I had given up on the Owls. That's okay. So basically I am going to take this opportunity to kind of get caught up on a lot of things, like some of my review copies that I have, which is a tricky one. I'll get to that in a minute. Also some of the wonderful wishlist books that I received, which I'll talk about in my April book haul. I participated in and I ran a couple of the Amazon wishlist threads and sent tons of books to people, and people sent a ton of books to me, which was really awesome. So I'd like to read some of those because they're all things that I would really, really love to read, seeing as I picked them. And yeah, maybe just some stuff for my TBR. I don't know, it feels like a really good time to just kind of like reset a little bit. But in terms of the books that I do have here, these are almost exclusively, review copies. And I have decided to highlight them because they are all either coming out soon, were meant to come out soon, or have already been released. So I'll talk about those in a second, but first I have a couple of things I am currently reading, and Dax is trying to crawl into my lap. This is not helpful. Oh, she hates being picked up. She's like been my tiny shadow for the past, I don't know, month? No, you're not admitting to it. She hates being held, but she really wants to sit in my lap. So if you see a little tail flailing around, that's Dax. So anyway, before I was so rudely interrupted by a tiny cat, I have a couple of books that I'm currently reading, which I know I am not going to finish before the month is out. It is the 27th today. It's Monday. And I have until pretty much Thursday at midnight to finish a bunch of books. I don't think that's going to happen. I am currently reading Goldilocks by Laura Lamb. That's going to be done by the time April is finished, but I am currently reading it now. So if for whatever reason I don't finish that book, that's going to roll over into my May TBR. Don't expect it to be there whatsoever. Expect to see that in my April wrap-up. And so I have two other books that I am currently reading. So the first is The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin, the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy. I read the first one back in February, and I did a reading vlog for it because I expected I would have feelings, and I did. So if you want to see that, I'll link it on the screen. I'm on page 12. I am not very far in this. I am very much expecting this to be a book I finish in May. If you haven't read the first book, which is the 5th season, I would highly recommend it, especially if you're looking for some unusual and very bleak fantasy. And the other book that I am currently reading, I'm listening to the audiobook on Scribd as kind of an opportunity to sort of whittle down my TBR a little bit. This is Senlin Ascends by Josiah Bancroft. Of course, if you have spent much time in the adult fantasy community, you probably know a lot about this book. It is a huge self-publishing to traditional publishing success story. It is so beloved by so many people, and he's like the nicest man on the planet. So I'm probably, I must be like almost halfway through this on audio. I'm liking it. I'm not loving it, and I don't know if that's going to change in the second half of the book, or if it's maybe kind of my expectations of what this book would be, because it is so hyped and it is so beloved. So I'm very curious to see what I think of this. Because it is an audiobook, there is the chance that I might finish this before the month is out. We'll see. Into the rest of the books that I have, the ones that I have not yet started but I'm thinking I might be reading in the month of May, are all review copies. I have talked about almost all of these in the past, so I'm just going to rattle through them really quick. Again, everything is linked down below if you want to find out a little bit more about them. So the first one that I have is 16th Watch by Mike Cole. This was on my April TBR. It didn't end up finding a place in my April reading, so I'm rolling it over to May. I just haven't really been in the mood for a really kind of hard military sci-fi, but because, as I said, I'm reading Goldilocks and I'm really enjoying that, I figured that now is kind of the time to pick this one up. So I'm very much looking forward to this, which is basically set in the future, and it follows a woman who is kind of a commander in the Coast Guard in space, and she and her sort of crew are trying to prevent the first lunar war. So this sounds really fun. I really like his fantasy writing. Mike Cole wrote the Sacred Throne trilogy, which is all novellas. This is a full-length book. So I'm very curious to see what his sci-fi is like. So this one is high on the list of priorities, but I do feel like I need to be in the right mindset to pick it up. Next up is a digital review copy. This is The Doors of Eden by Adrian Tchaikovsky, who you probably know is one of my absolute favorite science fiction authors. I'm a little bit less keen on his fantasy, although I have enjoyed some of his fantasy books. So I'm very curious to see what The Doors of Eden is like, because it feels like it could be a mix of sci-fi and fantasy. I read about 5% of this book during a bout of insomnia. It's a quite long book, I think, but I read kind of the first sort of, the first chunk to give me a good idea of what this book is about, which is basically lesbian cryptid hunters, which is awesome. I have these two women who are out hunting this mysterious cryptid in England, I believe in the south of England. One of them disappears, and she disappears for 5 years or so. This horrible thing happens, and then she reappears, and her friend slash lover has to figure out what the hell happened to her. So this sounds really fun. I'm very, very interested in this. The reason that that whole explanation was a little bit muddled is because I want to go into this knowing as little as possible. I don't want to know anything about the rest of the plot. Lesbian Cryptid Hunters does it for me. Then I have Phoenix Extravagant by Yoon-Ha Lee. This is one I'm very much looking forward to because I loved Nine Fox Gambit, which was another one of their books. I had no idea what the hell was going on, but I really enjoyed it, and I really loved the concepts that they came up with. So this one sounds really, really interesting. I have already heard very good things about it. It comes out in June, so long as it doesn't get delayed like a lot of the other books that are coming out around this time. But basically it is about a character who's kind of an artist for the Ministry of Armor, and they paint these sigils that bring these huge automatons to life. And this character finds out sort of the dastardly secrets behind the magic and the ink that they are using, and they decide that the best course of action is to steal one of the automatons, which is a giant dragon. It sounds awesome. I'm really looking forward to this. It gives me some Pacific Rim vibes, which I'm very much here for. So this is one I don't know a huge amount about, but I'm seeing people loving it, even though I haven't seen a lot of reviews so far, and I am very excited to dive back into their writing. Then I have The Queen of Coin and Whispers by Helen Cochran. This is a book that was meant to come out in April, but has now been delayed to June, as many books seem to have been. So this is one that I'm very excited for. I've had it on a million TBRs. I received this copy in like February, and I haven't managed to fit it into my reading at all, but I want to get it read in May. So this is basically a YA fantasy with a lesbian romance in it. We follow the sort of princess of her country who's inherited the throne, a very, very corrupt throne and government, and she hires on a spy master who's out for revenge for her murdered father. The two of them develop a relationship, but things are not what they seem. I'm really excited for this book. I adore the author. She is so lovely. She's a debut author, and she's just a very kind person. So I really want to support her. I really want to read this, and I know I'm gonna love it. Then we have Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I read one of her books in January, February, maybe earlier this year. It was Gods of Jade and Shadow, and I really enjoyed that, and this sounds fantastic. This is another one where I want to go in knowing as little as possible, but I do know that it follows a young woman, I think in the 1940s, 50s Mexico, and she has to go and save her cousin who is convinced that she's being poisoned. And she goes to this kind of beautiful old mansion and begins to uncover secrets. It sounds great. It has this amazing cover. I love this cover so much. And this comes out in June, in theory, if it doesn't get pushed back, and it is one of my most anticipated books of the year. I am so pumped to read this. Then we have a book that was meant to be read in April and I just didn't get around to it, but I know I'm going to be able to absolutely devour it when I do read it. This is Bookish and the Beast by Ashley Poston. This is the third book in the Once Upon a Con series, which are basically fairy tale retellings all centered around a convention for a particular sort of made-up TV show, which is basically Star Trek meets Star Wars. It's called Starfield. And the first book is Geekerella, which is Cinderella. The second book is The Princess and the Fangirl, which is The Prince and the Pauper. And this is obviously Beauty and the Beast. We follow a kind of villainous male character, which I'm very excited for. He made an appearance in the second book and I loved him because he's horrible. And yeah, I'm really curious about this. I don't usually go in for YA fantasy, but I really like her writing. I'm a former con goer, I'm a mega geek, all of that. I just love these books so much, even though they're not my kind of standard thing. And last but not least, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to this because I don't remember what the hell happened in the first book. I might need to do a reread of the first book. This is Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. The very first book is Foundry Side, and it made a huge splash when it came out. I think it was in 2018, maybe it was last year. But whenever it came out, people loved it and freaked out over it. I liked it. I didn't love it as much as his other series, the Divine Cities series, which you've seen me talk about in my favorite fantasy video, is incredible, but I still want to read this. I just don't remember a goddamn thing. Like, I cracked this open intending, because I received this month, I was intending to start this, and I read like 3 pages and I was like, I don't know who a single person is. Like, I know I'm meant to recognize these names. I know I'm meant to recognize something about this. I remember that the first book had a really explosive ending, and I was really excited to see where that was gonna go. I don't remember what that ending was. I don't remember anything about the first book, so I might have to actually do a very rare reread of Foundry Side. I don't like rereading books. I would rather read new stuff, but we'll see. If you have a really sort of detailed breakdown or recap of what happened in Foundry Side, please send it to me because I am in desperate need. So those are the books that I am thinking I might be reading in the month of May. Who knows what's gonna happen? I don't know. I think it's gonna be a very relaxed month for reading for me. I want to read a lot, but I would really like to focus on sort of whatever my mood decides I should read. I don't necessarily want to stick to a TBR, but hopefully I will be able to read some of these books. There are some things that are very high priorities for me in that stack, some hugely anticipated books and some things that I think I'm really gonna love. I would love to know in the comments below if you have a TBR for the month of May, if you are planning on just winging it and being a mood reader like I want to do. If you've read any of these books, if they're in your TBR, definitely let me know. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so go ahead and hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.